Why has data integration become such a focal point in the digital landscape? I think it's partially because there's so many different companies out there, so many different services out there that work together in this seamless way that we take for granted. If you think about just how you experience your digital personal life, with how you shop on Amazon, how you log into systems and new sites that you're trying out, how you think about the value proposition of social media or social networks, and how that impacts your shopping behavior or anything else. And then you think about those things and you realize you're not talking about one or two companies. You're talking about dozens of companies that are all working together in this seamless way to give you the value that you probably didn't think twice about. There's probably 4 or 5 different companies that go into what happens when you click buy on your Starbucks app or for your coffee. And that reality is not only a big part of why these companies do invest in integration, but why, if you're not investing in integration, there's absolutely a limit in terms of how you're going to grow and how far you can get, because you can't build everything. You can't do it all yourself. And there's a bunch of companies out there that have built a lot of these pieces. And your value proposition is going to be determined by how well you integrate with those pieces to enhance the experience that you're putting forward and their experiences even.
Yeah. And one of the main things that you're jumping on is your customer journey, right? And as Bo mentioned, you're jumping in on all of those integration points that go into feeding what that journey looks like. And he hit the nail on the head. It's at least 5 or 6 different companies or 5 or 6 different tools that you're trying to tie into, and each one has its own data paradigm that's associated with it. And unless you can correlate all that data together, it's almost useless. So a lot of these companies that are out there spend millions of dollars trying to craft something or come up with some type of ETL solution that does it behind the scenes for you, but that doesn't make for a good experience. I think the Starbucks of the world, the Apples of the world, it's a very cohesive journey that you go on. But if you dig into like the healthcare industry, how frustrating is it to every single doctor that you have to go to, you have to fill out new forms, you have to sign up for their app. And you just wish that, hey, I'm supplying my data to you. I'm saying that I trust you. Why can't you tie that into the systems that you trust as well and have faith in them going forward? And that is why it's so important that we get this right. So it's easier on the end user when they're trying to satisfy whatever they're trying to do. So looking back over the past couple of years, what have I seen have been the biggest shifts in data integration? I think there's a lot of them out there, and they're solving a lot of different needs that are out there. So if you look at the snowflakes of the world, right, it's aggregating a bunch of data to either analyze, whether it's for performance gains, personal gains, or jumping into the generative AI space where we can predictively analyze what's going to happen next. And that's out there. Or there's a lot of the Zapiers of the world that are out there, or these integration points that are helping tie together disparate systems to make the flow or provide you automation to simplify the process behind the scenes from an infrastructure perspective. So you don't have to hire all that manpower that's out there. And all of it is awesome. It's really solving a need for these specific problems. I think where at least I've seen the struggle is how can we tie that from just being the data piece to be able to use that data and provide value to the end user from day one, or monetize that data going forward. So you're not just sitting on it behind the scenes, you can share with your strategic vendor who can take part in this as well, so everybody can be successful, and ultimately the end client can be a happy client and a repeat customer.
I agree with everything Jason says. It's funny when I think about just the landscape of data integration and the piece of it that I've always found most interesting, which is the real-time data piece that we provide as well. I often think back, and Jason will remember this, it was way back in like 2015. Jason and I were actually working together at Frontline. And I remember we were building a microservice-oriented architecture there. And I remember a lot of back and forth communication between the different technology pieces. And this is all tech speak because at the time, this is how I thought about it. But I remember that we were aware, the industry was aware of solutions to this, and there was tools out there. There was like RabbitMQ, or Kafka was one we were looking at. And I remember reading, I don't remember which of us found it. Somebody, it might have been another person on the team, found this case study about LinkedIn, who is really, I think, even though these technologies existed, their implementation of how real-time event-based architecture can really help a business scale in amazing ways. They had published this, and it was describing what they built. And it was connecting a lot of dots for me in terms of what's possible. And the whole, the crux of it, if you boil it down, was integrations were all, even though we had notions of enterprise buses and queuing solutions like that, it was always seen as an overcomplication. It went out of vogue for a while. And then here came this pattern that LinkedIn was using that made it possible to move away from point-to-point solutions and simplify the concept of many-to-many real-time solutioning and real-time data integration internally for their own systems. And the result of it, I remember, it just simplified the way their systems worked. And that sort of became a really big sort of catalyst for us around, oh, we should do that. And here's some places we can tweak it. And here's how we can generalize it because it's not LinkedIn. And very much give credit to that team. And they went on to create Confluent, that team, and a lot of other things as well. But that notion, what's really interesting is that notion is a highly technical piece, and it's something that we've had for a while now. But it didn't catch on from a business perspective, despite like folks like me and Jason and others knowing that this is huge. And we went to conferences when people would talk about this, like event reactive architecture. It was entire presentations, and it was very future sort of centric. This wasn't that long ago. And I remember thinking, this doesn't feel like a future-centric thing. Why isn't everybody just doing this? And then companies, Celigo and Booming and Zapier, like Jason mentioned, became more popular. The thing was, though, that they weren't advertising this concept. What they were basically saying is real-time data integration specifically. And this is the fun disconnect. The movement toward real-time integrations is certainly an important one. But now we're beginning to see that there's also the beginnings of an understanding that it's not enough to just say, your data will go from here to here, and we'll take care of that. And great, things are connected and synced. That's awesome. And there are services that do that. Now we're beginning to see people are starting to understand the value of understanding what happened between A and B there, and what is everything else that's connected to that. That's the streaming. And every time I see somebody get that light bulb of understanding, like, oh, this would be a cool use case for streaming, e-commerce, and thinking through all of the ways that an order gets processed and triggers all these different actions in terms of fulfilling that order. That's a great use case for streaming. And whenever I see somebody sort of get that light bulb, I laugh a little bit to myself, not at them, but just at the notion that it took this long for it to become a business concept, because we were trying to figure out how to do that. And a lot of companies were doing that way back when. And it's just now becoming part of this. Well, oh, of course, we need this in the business speak as well.